You do not get to shrink her into one weekend, one trophy, or one headline. Because Alexandra Eala was already carrying history before the world decided to notice. People saw the scoreline 4-6, 6-4, 6-love over Jessica Pegula in the final in Washington, and they called it a breakthrough. A first WTA Tour title. Suddenly everyone understood. But that scoreboard only confirmed something that had already happened inside her long before Monday's rain-soaked finish. So the real question is not whether Alex became a champion that day. It is why it took a trophy for so many people to finally believe she already was one. Champions are not made in the ceremony. The ceremony is the easy part. The cameras are ready, the music plays, someone hands you a trophy, and everyone suddenly knows your name. The hard part happened years earlier, when no one waited at the end of practice, when a single loss could send her back into qualifying, when the airport was quiet and she carried her own bags after a match nobody back home could watch. That is where a champion gets built, and Alex lived those years before she lived this one. Washington itself refused to be simple. She dropped the first set to Pegula, 6-4, and the match slipped into a rain delay that stretched into the next day, nearly 24 hours from first point to last. Pegula already owned the head-to-head, having beaten Alex in the Miami semifinal the year before. She knew how to take time away, absorb pace, and make a younger player feel like every opening closed a shot too soon. The story could have ended right there, in the rain, with Alex down a set and a break. Instead, she found her way back, took the second set 6-4, then closed it out 6-love, winning the last 9 games of the match and surrendering only 8 points in that final set. That is not a lucky afternoon. That is discipline refusing to blink. Her path to the final made the title heavier with meaning. Leylah Fernandez stood in her way. Jing Qinwen stood in her way. Alina Svitolina stood in her way. Naomi Osaka stood in her way. Then Pegula. These are players who understand pressure, deep runs, and the cost of surviving a brutal draw. Alex never treated a famous name as a reason to retreat. She respected every opponent without surrendering an inch of ambition, and that balance is rare. Respect should sharpen your preparation, not shrink it. I recognize the look of an athlete carrying more than herself. It shows in the pause before sitting down, in the careful answers after emotional matches, in a win that never gets called hers alone because an entire country stayed up refreshing the score. Alex competes as herself, but the Philippines moves with her. That love can lift a 21-year-old higher than she imagined. It can also grow heavy if it quietly turns into a demand for perfection. Nobody should ask a young athlete to carry a nation's hopes flawlessly every single week. She will lose matches people expected her to win. That is not betrayal. That is professional tennis. Success does not remove pressure, it changes its shape. Before a breakthrough, people ask if you can win. Afterward, they ask why you don't win every time, and that question has worn down plenty of talented careers. Opponents will now study her serve, her return position, the pattern she favors when stretched wide. That is not proof the breakthrough was temporary. It is proof she has become important enough to study. Miami is where the wider tennis world first saw how fast Alex could solve a match. Entering as a wild card, she beat 3 Grand Slam champions, including Iga Swiatek, before falling to Pegula in a tight semifinal. She left without the trophy but carried something else home, proof that the very top of the sport was no longer a distant country. It was close enough to touch, and that closeness reshaped how she trained. Washington mattered because she used that information instead of getting stuck inside the old defeat. This was never simple revenge. Revenge is too small to build a career on. She arrived a more complete player, fell behind again, and found a different answer. None of this happened overnight. Alex trained at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca and built her game through junior tennis long before the tour knew her name, winning the US Open girls singles title back in 2022. This past season alone, she reached her first tour-level final at Eastbourne, where she saved 4 championship points before finally losing in a marathon tiebreak. She won a WTA 125 title in Guadalajara. She broke into the world's top 50. And now Washington has pushed her toward a projected career high near the top 20. History was gathering around her long before this trophy landed in her hands. A ranking is a snapshot, not a personality. It records what she earned across a stretch of matches, not the ceiling of a career, and it comes with points she will now have to defend. The calendar does not care how historic last week felt. In the locker room after a tough loss, the tape is still on your fingers, one shoe off and one still on, and the athlete has to remember that disappointment is real but temporary. The work remains. Courage without doubt is only comfort. Real courage shows up when the outcome is still uncertain and you serve toward the line anyway. Down a set and staring at a rain delay, Alex did not wait for certainty before changing the direction of that final. She acted while the result was still completely open, and that is championship behavior, not the photo or the ranking graphic afterward. It is staying responsible for the next point when everything in you wants to skip ahead to the ending. The Philippines should protect this joy rather than convert it into ownership. She has already given something permanent. No future loss erases the first title she earned, and no ranking dip erases the sight of that flag beside a WTA champion's name. A child in Manila or Cebu can now pick up a racket and see the shape of possibility differently, not as an abstract dream but as footage, a scoreline, and a name. What that child will learn later is that talent was only the invitation. The repetition, the lonely travel, the rebuilding of confidence after defeat, that is the real map Alex is leaving behind. So when people ask whether Alex Eala is finally ready to be a champion, they're asking the wrong question, staring at the finish line and ignoring the road that led to it. She crossed levels, rankings, and expectations long before that trophy reached her hands. She fell behind Pegula in Miami, met her again in the rain in Washington, went down a set once more, and finished the match on her own terms anyway. The ceremony gave her a title. The years gave her the character to hold it. And that is why this moment is bigger than one final, one ranking, or one rain-soaked week. Tomorrow the tour moves on, and another opponent will study every habit she revealed this week. She will not win every match that follows, but she now carries proof no result can strip away. The world did not witness her belief being born in Washington. It simply caught up to it.